Welcome to this edition of Head to Head. I'm your host, Cam McKinney, and this is episode number 370 of the podcast. And on this episode, I'm talking about the Boston Celtics trading away Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. The start of the Celtics offseason has gone the way many expected it would. They have broken up a part of their championship winning core, trading away guard Jrue Holiday to the Portland Trailblazers and big man Kristaps Porzingis to the Atlanta Hawks. There have been mixed reactions to these trades. Here's where I'm at. I thought in the case of Kristaps Porzingis, there would be virtually no market due to the fact that he misses significant time every year and last season dealt with a mysterious illness that made him a liability on the court. It's one thing to be great when you do play and you miss time. It's a whole other thing to not be the same you have been when you return. That's what was so special about Porzingis's first season with the Celtics. He would miss games, come back, and play like one of the best bigs in the entire NBA. It felt like no matter how much time he had off, it had zero impact, and that was not the case last season. You felt his absence, and you also felt it when he was on the court. He wasn't the same Kristaps Porzingis that helped you win a title. Yes, they moved on from him because of the money, but the injuries had to be a concern. It's like when the Celtics moved on from Robert Williams. You knew there was something there with that player. He provided something that no other member of the Boston Celtics did, but he wasn't healthy enough to have a real impact. And that's where we were at with Kristaps Porzingis last season. Even when he was healthy, he didn't look or feel like the Kristaps Porzingis you want him to be, which is the third best member of the Boston Celtics behind Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And yes, it's one thing for Derek White to emerge and to be better than Kristaps Porzingis, but Peyton Pritchard had more of an impact on last year's Celtics team than Porzingis. That's why from a basketball standpoint, I don't view this as a great loss for the Boston Celtics. It is a real mystery how good at basketball Porzingis is going to be next season. Yes, I think we could live in a world where he could emerge and play like an all-star and be the same old Porzingis. But the other part of me thinks he's past his time and he's no longer going to be an elite player who's worth that kind of money that he's being paid right now. One of the most shocking things of all is that by the end of last season, Al Horford had more left in the tank than Kristaps Porzingis. I mean, there were times where you didn't want Joe Mazzulla to play Porzingis at all. And I do think that if Porzingis was still on the Celtics next season, a year without Jason Tatum, there would be real pressure on him to be the second best player on the Boston Celtics. And I don't think he was going to play better than Derek White. I don't think you could guarantee me that Kristaps Porzingis was going to be able to average 20 points per game next season and be that reliable offensive player you would have needed him to be. Getting to Jrue Holiday, he was not the same Holiday he's been during the regular season. It was my belief that he would turn it up during the playoffs like he did last year. Holiday is a hard player to rate from game to game. Sometimes he's making an obvious impact, and other times he's doing the little things that no one talks about. And there is a part of me that wonders if moving on from him is a mistake. The Bucks got rid of him in favor of a star player, and he went on to win with the Celtics. Now, logically, what the Celtics are doing here makes sense. He's a player in his mid-30s who's making a lot of money. Next year, for the most part, you'll be without Tatum, so your chances of winning it all are slim to none. I think Holiday plays a style of basketball that lulls you to sleep. So it's not that interesting to watch from game to game. And I think Milwaukee Bucks fans feel the exact same way that fans of the Boston Celtics do right now. Why do we need this guy? He's not the same guy. He's not an all-star player. He's a great defender, but he can have some rough games also. It's almost like Jrue Holiday is too good at being the ultimate role player. So all these teams he's on think of him as replaceable. He's going to be on his fifth team. Between him and Porzingis, I think he still has a lot left basketball-wise. Like, I do believe in Jrue Holiday being a major contributor to a team that is looking to compete. As a fan of the Boston Celtics, it's just a weird situation because just a year ago, we were celebrating the extensions of both Jrue Holiday and Derek White, and even then, there were talks that these guys won't be here for the long haul, but for that to be a reality is jarring, and there's still all the rumors swirling around Derek White. Now, I would go absolutely insane if the Boston Celtics traded away Derek White. I believe he should be one of the faces of your franchise moving forward. You still have Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Derek White needs to be a part of the equation. You need a real point guard. He's it. Again, I agree with the overall consensus that these two trades are about money. But having said that, I don't think enough is being made about the decline both of these players went through last year. And maybe you could make an argument that both of them were going to return to form. I just don't believe that to be the reality, especially when it comes to Kristaps Porzingis. Like, I don't think he was going to be the Kristaps Porzingis you were going to need him to be, which is an elite offensive player, especially without Jason Tatum on the court. I mean, you were going to expect him to be the number 2 behind Jaylen Brown, and I think that was too much pressure after what happened at the end of last year. Again, this mysterious illness that made him look like the Monstars took all of his talent. These trades would be a tougher pill to swallow if they involved Jaylen Brown or Derek White. Yes, I have an emotional attachment to Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. They had a great tenure with the team, but they accomplished what they needed to accomplish. They played a pivotal role in a championship winning team. Did I want them to repeat? Absolutely. But there is a part of me that thinks they didn't repeat because these two players were not the same players from a year ago. And I really don't believe it's insane to say that if you got the same consistency you had from Jrue Holiday a year ago and the same consistency you had from Kristaps Porzingis, then the Celtics would have been repeat champions. I don't think that's insane. Again, maybe that's me being a homer, but if you had an all-star caliber Kristaps Porzingis on the roster for an entire year, the Celtics repeat, especially if Porzingis was playing his best basketball during the playoffs. The reality was he played his absolute worst basketball when the playoffs came around. The biggest reason why the Boston Celtics beat the Dallas Mavericks was because of the perimeter defense, which included Jrue Holiday. I don't think he played at the same defensive level this past year that he did the year before. And looking back at it, maybe the Celtics' biggest problem was the whole idea of bringing the band back together. That rarely works in sports. Oh, let's just bring back the exact same group that just won together. Maybe you needed to bring in an outside guy who was motivated to win it all, because the year before you had that. Kristaps Porzingis had not won a championship. Jrue Holiday was trying to prove to the Bucks they had made the wrong choice. Al Horford had yet to win a title. You had all of these motivations. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, they had yet to win. They had to prove they were an elite duo, and then all of those motivations went away, and you paid all of these guys, and you didn't end up repeating. In fact, you didn't even make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. It's just weird to me that in some circles this is being treated as if the Boston Celtics are breaking up a dynasty. They're not. They didn't reach that. I thought they were going to be one. I thought they were going to win multiple titles with this roster. I thought it was going to happen. I thought they were going to be repeat champions, but that did not happen. But I also believe this: if the Celtics were coming off of winning the NBA Finals, these trades would not be made. If they had the results, they would pay the luxury tax, they would pay the second apron, they would keep this roster together for at least one more season to see if they could repeat. But guess what? They didn't even repeat. And it goes without saying that the Jason Tatum Achilles injury is a huge factor in all of this. Next year is being viewed as a lost year for the Boston Celtics. Now, we could look at it as a positive and say maybe Jaylen Brown is going to emerge as a true number one, but what does that really mean? Is Jaylen Brown going to help the Celtics get back to the Eastern Conference Finals? I just don't see that as a likely scenario. Maybe you're a decent 45 to 50 win team at best that can make it to the second round of the playoffs. And I get why it's hard to give up on the Celtics. I mean, the rest of the Eastern Conference does not look super impressive. I mean, the Pacers for a bit are going to be without Halliburton. You don't know what the Miami Heat are going to be. The 76ers are a mess. The Raptors are going in a new direction. Giannis may want out of Milwaukee. I also just think that some people are ignoring the teams on the rise. I'm talking about the Orlando Magic and the Detroit Pistons. These are young, hungry teams. They just made the playoffs and they're looking to get better and better. Like, those are the teams you should be worried about. I agree with you. The Knicks look like a real mess right now. They don't have a head coach. I'm not afraid of the New York Knicks. It's those other teams that are going to have younger talent, that are going to be deeper than you. My point is, in the coming month, I believe the Eastern Conference is going to look totally different. I think there's going to be a team that's going to take advantage of the moment, and it doesn't look like it's going to be the Boston Celtics. There are Celtics fans shocked over the fact that these two are no longer on the roster, but then there are some of us used to the dramatic changes the team has made over the years. I've seen Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, and Kemba Walker all leave the team either via free agency or trade, and I get it. Porzingis and Holiday hold a special place because they won here, but I never for a minute believed either was going to end their career a member of the Boston Celtics. In all honesty, I thought Jrue Holiday would be the only one they were able to trade and that they would have to keep Kristaps Porzingis. I am kind of surprised there was a market for Porzingis. I don't know what the Atlanta Hawks believe they are getting in Porzingis. Do they think they're getting the 20-point per game scorer, the guy who can be lethal from free at times? Because that's the guy we wanted him to be last year on the Celtics, and he clearly wasn't. So what makes the Atlanta Hawks feel good about this trade? And then don't even get me started with the Portland Trailblazers. I mean, how can you feel good about that roster and that head coach in Chauncey Billups? They've been bad for a while now. That's one of the reasons I don't feel bad about these trades. It would have felt a lot worse if I saw these two guys go to teams that I thought were elite. Like if Jrue Holiday was traded to the Denver Nuggets or Porzingis was traded to the Warriors, then I would feel bad, because that would feel like, oh, these guys are still going to be able to contribute to winning basketball teams. I don't feel good about the future of the Atlanta Hawks. I'm sorry, I'm over Trae Young being on the Hawks. I don't view them as a real contender, and the same goes for the Trailblazers. I get why these teams are making these trades, but I don't think it makes them much better as teams. These are odd trades. Not that the Celtics traded away Porzingis and Holiday, because a lot of people expected that, but because of who traded for them. The Trailblazers wanting Holiday and the Hawks wanting Porzingis is confusing to say the least. Looking back at it, it is kind of sad how their careers with the Boston Celtics ended, especially in the case of Kristaps Porzingis. I mean, fans absolutely loved this guy his first year in Boston. He had that huge first game of the NBA Finals. Then he gets hurt, misses the rest of that series. Then he comes back the following year, and something just seemed off the entire season when it came to Porzingis. He was no longer the third wheel on the Boston Celtics, and I really do believe that is the big problem here. You cannot live in a world where you're paying Kristaps Porzingis that kind of money to be your fifth option. There is a world where maybe the Celtics could have justified keeping Jrue Holiday, but keeping Kristaps Porzingis would have been really bizarre in my opinion. From a basketball standpoint, you can also logically say, hey, we have Peyton Pritchard, we have Derek White, we have other guards on the roster who we can play other than Jrue Holiday. They're bringing in Anthony Simons in the trade. Like, the Celtics are still very deep at the guard position, so I can understand them thinking they no longer need Jrue Holiday at that number. I know this all comes down to the money, and that's why he's no longer on the Celtics, but you can say, hey, we've got other guards on the roster who are going to be able to improve their game. Like, maybe we haven't yet seen the best of Peyton Pritchard. I'm just trying to make a positive out of what people are seeing as a negative. The biggest problem for the Boston Celtics currently, roster-wise, is the lack of big men on the roster you can depend on. Al Horford is going to be a free agent. Who knows if he's going to want to come for the ride of next season? I mean, does he really want to, what would look like be, wasting a year on a team that's not going to win, or does he want to go to a team that's going to compete to win a title? You brought in George Niang in the Porzingis trade, but he's not a big, he's not going to get rebounds. He's decent at shooting the ball, but rebounding the basketball is going to be a huge problem for the Celtics. I mean, Jason Tatum was one of the team's best rebounders, not just their scorer. He did the dirty work that the team is going to be in desperate need of come next season. I don't know how to feel about the Celtics next year. I don't. I am a little bit pleased over the fact that they're not going to be the most talked about team in basketball, because the narrative surrounding this team last year was kind of annoying. I mean, all the talk about them shooting too many free-pointers. I mean, how can you say that about a team that last year won the NBA title? I don't think they changed their style of play all that much. I think the difference is they were more consistent last year than they were this year, and ultimately they paid for it. Right now, there's a lot of noise about whether or not all this second apron talk is good for the NBA. There have now been 7 different NBA final victors in the last 7 years, and many believe the CBA is the reason why, and I get it. But I don't think that if the Celtics kept both Porzingis and Holiday moving forward, that they would win again, not just because of the Tatum injury. Even when he was healthy, their chances of winning last year never felt great. They won the 61 games, but they didn't feel like the same team they were last year. They didn't feel as deep, and part of that, I hate to say, goes back to the fact that Jrue Holiday was not the same Jrue Holiday he was last year, and Porzingis was not the same Kristaps Porzingis. He wasn't missing time, then coming back and making a huge impact. That was missing throughout the entire season, especially during the postseason. He felt lost out there at times. I wish these two players nothing but the best. I hope they have a terrific end to their careers. I believe Jrue Holiday is a future basketball Hall of Famer. He's won a title with the Bucks. He won a title with the Celtics, and in both cases, he felt like the missing ingredient. Like, the Bucks were a very good team before Holiday, but then he gets there and they win. The Celtics were a very good team before Holiday. He gets gets there, they win. The career of Porzingis really does feel like a roller coaster filled with ups and downs. 1 minute he's the unicorn, one of the most talented players in the NBA. Other times he's an afterthought. Maybe he's about to have one more upswing before it's all said and done. I'm rooting for it. I like watching him play. He is one of the more entertaining big men in the entire NBA. I get the Celtics were forced to make these trades because of the financial implications, but I also believe this was kind of the perfect time to send these two guys off. Like, it just felt like it was over in both cases. I don't think Jrue Holiday was going to play great next year for the Boston Celtics, and I don't think Porzingis was going to play great next year for the Boston Celtics. They were great fits with the team, and now they just kind of both felt out of place. For now, at least, the team is keeping who they need to around Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Derek White. Those are the right choices. Those are the guys you need to keep. In closing, this is how I'm going to remember Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown had already played with so many veteran players that didn't pan out, and then in walks Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, two players who were willing to play a role on a team that wanted to win it all. They were never trying to be the best players on the team. They were just trying to fit in, and for a time period, they were perfect fits. Thanks for listening to this edition of Head to Head. I'm Cam McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Monday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So please rate, review, and subscribe.